A mysterious death in Lingotto. An unsolved mystery seems to be solved. By Scott Christensen. Paulina Fiore, 43, was found dead on the kitchen floor with enigmatic bruises when the police forced their way into her apartment. An autopsy was immediately ordered by the lead detective because he suspected homicide. However, the coroner determined that vitamin C deficiency was the cause of death after conducting extensive research. Sources confirm that Stephanie Brolo is Paulina's close friend. In a video that has gone viral on social media, she can be seen crying and saying, "This is all my fault. I finish writing the story while sipping my third espresso of the day at the offices of the largest newspaper in my city. Living by the rule of 1 coffee per story is a good idea. I wish I could teach new journalists this, but they do things differently. I declare, I'm sick of tabloid journalism after finishing my morning's third random fatality report. To no one in particular in the newsroom. I'm ignored by the young writers around me. They are content to simply hold down a job in the traditional media during the economic downturn." According to Giuseppe, our newest chief editor, articles about sex or death receive 10 times more clicks than other articles. His editorial concepts are as blunt as a fish seller's method of selling in the market. Before I can concentrate on another piece of investigative journalism, I must endure ambulance chasing for an additional month. My lengthy expose of government corruption from last month, which took up half of the front page of the print edition, received fewer online views than a weekend car accident or a fight in a nightclub. Max? Giuseppe is standing in front of my desk. Why haven't you interviewed the friend yet? Friend? Friend of whom? Idiot. The friend who says, all my fault. Young, appealing, and popular online? This is what Giuseppe says, his voice getting louder with each word. Stephanie Brolo, I demonstrate to Giuseppe that my attention to detail is flawless. I did not major in political science to pursue friends of suicide and murder victims. Do it. He walks away after turning around. He turns around about halfway across the newsroom and yells, "Vitamin C. Max, focus on the vitamin C because nutrition stories benefit our advertisers." A number of reporters make notes on their smartphones. In the news meeting tomorrow, they are likely to propose a wide range of vitamin stories, even to the untrained eye. I dial the friend. Max Serafino is here. Is Bianca here? A female voice says, yes, but pauses. Are you in the police force? No. I refer to the newspaper by its title. The name frequently opens doors, thanks to its 137-year history. I assumed that the police would call first. What do you want? In Italy, the police would never bother with something as insignificant as a social media comment. Unless a famous person or politician was involved. I would like to clarify what you said in the Italia app viral video. I mentioned the most popular social media app in Italy. Bianca declares, that video is ruining my life. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, what I said was misunderstood by everyone. Paulina's demise had nothing to do with me. 6 months ago, she stopped going out and looked thinner. She takes a deep breath and thinks, maybe I started her in this direction. When she stopped seeing me, I called her twice. I ought to have tried harder and gone to her house. It's all too much, she says in response, thanks for calling me, but sorry, I don't know who you are. The mobile device's screen suddenly turns red. She ends the WhatsApp call and disconnects. Good job on the interview with Paulina. Giuseppe massages one of my antique pencils between his fingers as he moves over. No problem, boss, I was able to incorporate the sparse information into a moving essay about eating disorders, and a piece about a friend who had lost a loved one. Cool pencil. He looks puzzled at the Castelli wooden pencil. Max, you are too old for this newsroom by 10 years. However, you are a cat that never loses its balance. The Turin tiger? I suggest. I'll use that as a reference. I can only hope for a name that sounds important these days. When traditional newspapers collected all advertising revenue instead of Google, I recall being flown to Rome to interview government ministers in the Elysian days. One of the first things a beat reporter does when given a story is to get in touch with the family. I send an introduction to Paulina's father after locating him on social media. Max Serafino, a reporter for the Turin Register, is here. I'm writing an article about the unfortunate incident that occurred with your daughter, and I want to make sure that all of the information is correct. Please get in touch with me as soon as possible. I get a response that looks like it was copied and pasted. We have nothing to say, so please don't contact us again, the Fiori family. I move on to another breaking story, and the Paulina story stays quiet for several days in the Turin Register's newsroom. Max line 7. There is shouting. I answer, city desk, Max Serafino. This is Paulina Fiori, father, a man says, our daughter. It's all our fault. We noticed how much time she was spending on her phone, but we didn't stop her. I respond, I'm sure it's not your fault, but I would like to hear more. Why did you decide to call me today, exactly? They stated that the police unlocked her phone and inquired about the websites she was visiting. Do you have any names in mind? I'm not sure. He stated, but the majority of the articles were about diseases. He had never heard of any of them. Who was she in touch with? According to reports from neighbors, Paulina has not been outside in months. They did say she received the links from friends on the Italia app. There must be friends online. I call the University of Turin's Professor Rizzo. Is it possible for a patient to become malnourished as a result of their fear of disease, such as bacteria and viruses? I ask. Mysophobia, also known as germophobia, can cause a patient to avoid touching food, such as by eating with gloves. It may cause patients to limit social interaction and avoid public places in problematic cases. Paulina seemed to be surviving on boiled pasta. Even in the most extreme cases of mysophobia, I've never heard of malnutrition, though that sounds plausible. The strongest psychological urge is hunger, which includes the desire for a varied diet. But isn't the need to survive stronger still? I speculate in an effort to imagine the potential threat to my own existence. How could Paulina completely avoid vitamin C, which is so prevalent? I inform the chief editor of my case progress. This has the elements of a good human interest story: food, fear, and a female victim, according to the author. Giuseppe looks satisfied. Keep looking, but don't say anything bad about Italia app. Their traffic accounts for 30% of our total traffic. Numerous people in our city are on speaking terms with me. People enjoy discussing themselves with others who are paying attention, especially if they believe they hold authority positions. Bruno followed a different, more international path than I did after we both graduated from university. After working for 15 years in Silicon Valley, he returned to our hometown and was quickly hired by Italy's largest social media company. A glimpse of the life I might have had. To arrange a cozy dinner with a 41-year-old man, I postponed dinner with my girlfriend Gabrielle. On a clear, dry evening as dusk descends over Turin as it sits in its valley between the towering Italian Alps on one side and the rolling hills that rise up from the Po River on the other, I make my way toward the rectangular bulk of iron lattice that is the old Fiat factory in Lingotto, which is on the south side of the city. The factory, which is almost a kilometer long, is now offices and a shopping mall on the ground floor. It is now well liked by high-tech startups, many of which hail from the United States, France, and Germany. People are now trying to figure out how to sell discount handbags through e-commerce in the building that was the center of the city when Turin produced half of Europe's automobiles. At least the Turinans are no longer doomed to a life of labor-intensive labor like previous generations. Paulina lived close to this structure. I have requested a quiet table at the Osteria del Fiat. When the host takes us to a very crowded dining room, I'm disappointed. We pass a big room with just one guest table. I recognize a retired local politician in the group of suited men. Power brokers don't like being overheard in the shadows of the city. Bruno takes a sizable sip of the Dolcetto d'Alba that we have been drinking an hour earlier after we have finished our own meal. We are now ready to move on to the main course of the meal, which consists of the obligatory pleasantries and the disclosure of information about friends shared with us. I explain that Paulina was accessing the app of his employer more than 50 times per day. We concentrate on returning traffic at Italia app. We enchant some readers with glamour, while we terrorize others. Is that not manipulative? We are providing people with what they desire. They will find hate if they want it. They will also discover love if they want it. What about promoting democratic principles and human rights? For college students, that is just empty rhetoric. You know that. Paulina Fiori died from overindulging in fake news that Italia app sent to her. It is not our fault that someone is unable to deal with online news. Someone else will send it if we don't send it to them. I point out, you have become very American in your thinking. Although it is disappointing that my old friend no longer sees the world in the same way that we used to, I have accepted people's political and other differences. I add that the police appear to be very interested in her social media history. Have the police opened an investigation? Bruno asks me with renewed interest. Maybe the people who write the fake news are to blame for her death, not Italia app. I'll look into the fake news producers and bring them to your attention if you can send me her browsing history, which the police are currently looking through. That could help you respond more quickly to negative coverage. Of course, I won't mention your name. I'll consider it. Bruno concentrates on his glass of red wine. Although Bruno and I may not agree with each other, we have a history that is sufficient to trust that we will safeguard each other's interests. Through an encrypted messaging app, I receive Paulina's browsing history the following afternoon. I begin to click on the links. The ongoing influx of illegal immigrants into Italy. How ventilation shafts lead to the ascent of COVID. The 7 ways buttons on elevators spread disease. Vegetables in our supermarkets chosen by immigrants inundated with the monkeypox virus are photographed by paparazzi. I browse through months' worth of links about preventable diseases. The government has been attempting to combat fake news because it is a problem. My heart races when I see our name among the thousands of links I look through. Don't believe the government's claims regarding monkeypox. Clicking the link brings up a list of well-known headlines from the Turin Register. Max Serafino's The Dark Hand Behind the Government Reshuffle. Max Serafino's patient malpractice allegations covered up by health authorities. Max Serafino's misguided pandemic recommendations. Max Serafino's corruption exposed in the Turin government. Max Serafino's other articles Paulina was reading, which cautioned her not to trust doctors and government health advice. I stare at the pencil that Giuseppe left on my desk earlier. I feel their hands on my shoulders as I hear someone approaching behind me. And you thought you were superior to all of us, didn't you? Asks Giuseppe in his voice. Is all. I'm about to ask a straightforward question. But I must stop. I need to pay my bills and there aren't many other jobs. I get rid of unnecessary self-doubt. The news is reported by journalists, not created by us. I make suggestions for events we could cover for our prestigious 137-year-old newspaper to the chief editor, by clicking on the current police bulletin. The following morning, a young journalist who usually sits next to me struts proudly through the newsroom to greet colleagues. He receives a thumbs up from Giuseppe. An online article titled, "Clickbait News Causes Scurvy in Italy's Auto Capital," is trending nationwide when I open the Turin Register's most viewed list. Bruno and I begin regularly having dinner together. Bruno reminds me of a political science professor who had taught us every industry is selling a product, and at its core, the news industry sells fear, as we discuss our previous school adventures and the state of the nation. The number of cases of malfunction similar to Paulina's will rapidly increase across the nation in the coming months. Bruno starts to eat more and more, I notice. I can't eat anymore.